Welcome to Classic Stories. I'm Ryan Lagod. Today's story is Hansel and Gretel, or Little Brother and Little Sister. By a great forest, there once lived a poor woodcutter with his wife and 2 children. The little boy was named Hansel, and the little girl was named Gretel. There was never much to eat in their home, and once when a famine came to the land, the woodcutter could no longer afford even a loaf of bread. He did not know what to do. One night, he lay in bed tossing and turning, worrying about his problems, and he sighed and said to his wife, "What is to become of us? How can we feed our poor little children when the 2 of us have nothing for ourselves?" "Listen," she answered, "we can no longer feed them. When the sun rises tomorrow, let's take them out to the thickest part of the woods, make a fire for them, and give each of them a crust of bread. Then we'll go off to work and leave them by themselves. They'll never find their way back home, and we will be free." "Oh no," said the woodcutter. "How could we abandon our own children alone in the woods? I don't have the heart to do that. Surely wild beasts would find them and tear them to pieces." "You fool," she said. "Then all 4 of us will starve. You might as well start building our coffins." And she gave him no peace until he agreed. "Fine, if we must, we must. But still, I do feel sorry for the poor children," he said. The children had not been able to fall asleep because they were so hungry, and they heard every single word their parents said. Gretel thought there was no hope for them and began to cry bitter tears. "Don't worry, Gretel," said Hansel. "I'll think of something." And as soon as the grown-ups were snoring, he got up, put on his jacket, opened the door, and tiptoed outside. The moon was shining brightly, and in front of the house there were white pebbles that glittered like silver coins. Hansel bent down to collect them and filled his jacket pockets with as many as would fit. Then he went back into the house and said, "Get some sleep, sister. Everything is going to be all right." With that, he went back to bed. At daybreak, even before the sun had begun to rise, their stepmother came and woke them up. "Get up, you lazy children. We are going out into the forest to fetch wood." Then she gave each one a little crust of bread, saying, "Here is something for lunch, but be smart and don't eat it until then, for you'll not be getting any more." Gretel put both crusts of bread into her apron pocket, because Hansel's pockets were already filled with shiny white pebbles. Then they all walked out together into the forest. After they had walked a bit, Hansel stopped to look back at the house. Again and again, he stopped to look back at the house. Finally, his father said, "Hurry up, Hansel, stop wasting time. Why are you stopping to look back at the house so much?" "Oh, father," said Hansel, "I am looking at my cute little white kitten that is sitting on the roof. It wants to say goodbye to me." His stepmother said, "Silly child, that isn't your kitten. That's just the morning sunlight shining on the chimney." But Hansel had not been saying goodbye to his kitten. He had been taking the shiny white pebbles from his pocket and dropping them onto the ground. When they were deep in the woods, the father said, "Children, gather some wood, and I will make a fire so you won't freeze." Hansel and Gretel gathered branches and twigs and made a big brush pile as tall as a little mountain. The twigs were set afire, and when the flames were burning brightly, their stepmother said, "Lie down by the fire and rest, children. Try to nap. Your father and I will go into the forest to cut wood. When we are done, we will come back for you." Hansel and Gretel sat by the fire. When the sun was high in the middle of the sky, they knew it was lunchtime, and they ate their little crusts of bread. They could hear the blows of an axe, so they thought that their parents were working nearby. But it was not an axe. When after many hours they went to look, they found that it was a branch their parents had tied to a dead tree. The wind was beating it back and forth. They returned to the fire and sat there a long time. Their eyes grew tired, and they fell asleep. When they woke up, it was dark. Gretel cried, "How will we get out of the woods?" Hansel hugged her and said, "Wait a little longer. until the moon has risen. Then we'll be able to find our way home." The full moon rose high in the sky, and beams of moonlight fell through the trees. Hansel and Gretel held hands and followed the white pebbles that glittered on the forest path like shiny new silver coins, showing them the way home. They walked all night, and they arrived home just as the sun came up. They knocked on the door, and when the stepmother opened it and saw who it was, she said, "You wicked children! Why did you sleep so long in the woods? We thought you were never coming back." The father was overjoyed when he saw the children once more, and he hugged and kissed them, for he had felt terrible about leaving them alone in the forest. Not long after, there was another famine, and once again the family had nothing to eat for many days. One evening the children heard the stepmother say to their father, "We have eaten everything again. We have only half a loaf of bread left, and when that's gone, we'll have nothing. We must get rid of the children. We will take them deeper into the woods this time, so they'll not find their way out. Otherwise, we'll starve." The father was heartbroken, but he didn't know what else to do, and so he agreed to do what she said. The children were still awake and overheard everything, so when the grown-ups were snoring, Hansel got up to gather pebbles as he had done before. But the door was locked, and he could not get out. Still, he comforted Gretel and said, "Don't worry, Gretel. Try to sleep. We'll think of something." Early the next morning, their stepmother woke the children. They each got a little crust of bread, even less than the last time. On their way to the forest, Hansel crumbled his bread in his pocket, then stopped every so often to throw crumbs onto the ground. "Hansel, come on. Why are you stopping to look back at the house so much?" said his father. "Keep walking, and be quick about it." "But I can see my sweet little white dove sitting on the roof of the house. It wants to say goodbye to me." "Foolish, silly child," said the stepmother. "That isn't your dove. That's just the morning sunlight shining on the chimney." Little by little, Hansel dropped all the breadcrumbs onto the path. They walked deeper into the forest than ever before. They came to a dark part of the forest they had never been to before in all their lives. Once again, they made a big fire, and the stepmother said, "Stay right here, children. If you get tired, you can take a nap. Your father and I are going into the forest to cut wood. We will get you in the evening when we are done." When the sun was high in the middle of the sky, they knew it was lunchtime, and Gretel shared her bread with Hansel, who had scattered his bread to make a path home. Then they fell asleep, and evening came and went, but no one came to get the poor children. It was dark at night when they woke up, and Hansel comforted Gretel and said, "Wait until the moon has risen. Then we'll be able to follow the breadcrumbs and find our way home." The moon rose high in the sky, and beams of moonlight fell through the trees. But the children could not find any crumbs, for the many thousands of birds that fly about in the forest and in the fields had gobbled them up. Still, Hansel thought he could find the way home, but they couldn't find it. They walked all night and through the next day, from morning until night, but still they were lost in the woods. They were terribly hungry, for they had eaten only the few small berries they could find growing wild in the forest. Because they were so tired that their legs would no longer carry them, they lay down under a mossy tree and fell asleep. When they woke up, they walked some more, but only got deeper and deeper in the forest. 3 days had gone by since the children had left home. At lunchtime, when the sun was high in the middle of the sky, they noticed a snow-white bird sitting on a branch. It sang so prettily that they stopped to listen. When it finished its song, it stretched its wings and flew out in front of them. They followed it to a little house. The bird perched on the roof, and when they came closer, the children saw that the little house was made of gingerbread, and the roof was made of cake, with windows made of sparkling sugar. "Oh, let's have a snack," said Hansel. "I'll climb up and try a piece of the roof. And Gretel, I bet you'll like the window. That will be the sweetest." Hansel reached up and broke off a little corner of the roof and gulped down most of it. and Gretel ate a sparkling sugar window pane and was about to polish off another when suddenly they heard a voice sing out, "Nibble, nibble, little mouse, who's that munching on my house?" The children answered, "It is not I, it is not I, it is the wind, the child of the sky." The door creaked open and out shuffled a woman as old as the hills. She leaned on a cane and shook her head and said, "Well, well, dear little children, what brought you here? Come inside with me, you'll be safe here." She took them by the hand and led them into her little house. Then she served them a good meal of milk and pancakes with sugar and apples and nuts. When their bellies were full, she made 2 charming little beds for them with fresh white sheets, soft as clouds. Hansel and Gretel lay down in them and felt as if they were in heaven. But the old woman had only pretended to be kind. She was really a wicked witch who had built the house of gingerbread and cake and candy to trick children into coming inside. She wanted nothing more than to feast on little children. Early the next morning, before the children woke up, she got up and went to their beds and looked at the 2 of them sleeping there so peacefully with their sweet pink cheeks. "What a tasty snack they will be," she mumbled to herself. Then she grabbed Hansel and stuck him into a birdcage, and when he woke up, he was locked behind metal bars and could barely move. He cried and cried, but there was no help for him. Then the old witch went to Gretel and shook her awake, shouting, "Get up, lazy child! Fetch me some water and cook something tasty for your brother. He is locked in a cage to get fattened up. When he is nice and plump, I'll eat him up," she cackled. Gretel began to cry. She had to do whatever the witch said. Now Hansel was given the best food every day so that he would get nice and fat, and Gretel had nothing but crab shells to eat. Every morning the old woman went to the cage and shouted, "Hansel, stick out your finger so I can feel if you are fat enough yet." Hansel stuck out a little bone through the bars of the cage, and the old witch, who had bad eyes and couldn't see it, believed that it was Hansel's finger. She couldn't figure out why he never got any fatter, no matter how many rich foods she made him eat. When a month had passed, she couldn't wait any longer and shouted to Gretel, "Hurry up and fetch me some water. I don't care if this child is fat or thin. Tomorrow I'm going to eat him for dinner." Oh, how the tears rolled down Gretel's cheeks as she fetched the heavy buckets of water in which Hansel was to be cooked. Early the next morning, Gretel had to get up early to fill the kettle with water and build a fire. "First we'll bake," said the old witch. "I've already kneaded the dough." She pushed poor Gretel over to the hot oven, which was so hot that flames leapt out. "Climb in there," said the witch, "and see if it is hot enough to put the bread in." Her wicked plan was to trick Gretel into looking inside the oven so that she could push her into it and lock the door shut and bake her and eat her up too. But Gretel saw what she had in mind, so she pretended to be confused, and she said, "I don't know how to do that. How can I possibly get inside?" "Silly goose," said the old witch. "It's easy. See, even I could get in." And she stuck her head into the oven. Then Gretel gave her a big, strong shove into the flames and slammed the iron door shut and locked it with a heavy iron bar. The old witch howled horribly and vanished into a puff of green smoke. Gretel ran to Hansel and unlocked the cage and rescued her dear brother, for she had been able to steal the key from the witch's pocket. Hansel jumped out like a bird flying from its cage. How happy they were! They threw their arms around each other and jumped with joy. The witch's house was filled with chests of jewels, crystals, precious stones, and pearls. So the children filled their pockets with treasures. Holding hands, they ran, and soon the woods grew more familiar to them. At last they saw their house. They ran inside and threw their arms around their father. The man looked as if his heart had broken with guilt and worry. He had not had one happy moment since he left the children in the woods, and their stepmother had died. Hansel and Gretel emptied their pockets, scattering handfuls of jewels, crystals, precious stones, and pearls all over the floor. Now all their worries were over. They always had plenty to eat, enough to share with friends and neighbors, and they lived happily ever after. The end.